The Solari Dominion scout ship glided silently through Earth's upper atmosphere. Inside, the crew of 6 watched the planet below with mild curiosity. To them, it was nothing more than another low-tech world. Primitive, scattered, not worth much. Their job was simple: collect data, make contact with the locals, and report back to the fleet. Standard first contact protocol. Commander Vec tilted his head, the thin green skin on his face tightening. Life signs are everywhere. No unified signal network, no orbital defenses. Easy work, like the others, asked Kale, the youngest. Of the crew? His voice trembled a bit. He'd never done a real scout mission before. Easier, Vex said. These bipeds haven't even left their atmosphere. This is pre-space flight. Will be done in 2 solar cycles. The ship descended toward a forested area where satellite scans had picked up scattered settlements. Their scanners showed heat signatures humans. Not many, maybe a dozen nearby. Perfect place to begin. They landed just outside a broken village. Buildings were old and falling apart. Rusted cars sat like bones. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Where are the locals? Kale asked. Svek motioned for the crew to spread out. We scan, we tag, we move. Stay alert. 3 of them stepped off the ramp. Their suits clicked, softly as they moved over dry leaves. Wind passed through the trees like whispers. One crew member, Yari, crouched near a burned-out house. Signs of conflict. Weapons. Fire. Old, though. Then a rustle. Behind them, fast. They turned, but saw nothing. Kale activated his drone. It hovered above them, scanning for movement. No readings. Vec's voice came through the comms. Stay sharp. Primitive doesn't mean harmless. Yari looked nervous. I don't like this place. A loud snap echoed through the trees. Not natural. Something heavy. Something moving. Suddenly the drone feed cut to static. Kale gasped.
My drone.
Its screams exploded over the comms. A burst of static. Gunfire. No too raw, too loud. Bones cracking. Something wet. Kale dropped his scanner. Commander, we're under attack. Get back to the ship now, Vex shouted.
Kale
ran. The others didn't make it. He reached the ramplone. Vex stood there, blaster drawn. Where's the team? Kale was shaking. Something took them. We didn't see. They were gone in seconds. Vec pulled him inside and sealed the ramp. Scanned the perimeter. All systems on lockdown, ship's AI reported. No movement. Nothing on thermal. Nothing at all. It didn't make sense. Then came the knock. Soft, once. Then again. Someone or something was outside. Vec froze. Put it on screen. The outside camera showed only trees, wind, shadows. Then a figure stepped into view. Human male, dressed in scrap-storn fabric, worn boots, dirty, his face half hidden behind a mask made from an animal skull. He stared directly at the camera. Didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. Then he raised his hand and held up a piece of metal, a piece of Kale's drone. Slowly, he bent it with his bare hands. Twisting, crushing without effort. Kale stepped back from the screen. That's not normal. Psst, narrowed. His eyes. He knew where the drone was. He knew we'd be watching. The human dropped the twisted drone, turned, and walked into the trees. Silence returned. For a moment, no one spoke. Kale whispered, "Why didn't he attack?" Vec turned toward the main console. He was sending a message. Hours passed. They didn't sleep. Kale monitored systems. Vec reviewed the last drone. Footage before the signal cut. Frame by frame, he watched the human leap from the trees with impossible speed. No armor, no weapon, just rage. One swing and the drone shattered. It wasn't just strength. It was calculation, precision, purpose. This isn't a random, primitive, Vec muttered. This is someone trained. At dawn, Vec ordered the ship to lift off. It's just a few meters enough to avoid ground attack, but low enough to scan. Kale didn't protest. They hovered there, watching. Then movement. Dozens of figures emerged from the forest. Humans, all in makeshift armor. Painted faces, silent. They surrounded the clearing. None spoke. None moved closer. They just stood, watching the ship. Kale's voice cracked. Why are they just staring? I think it's part of the message, Vex said quietly. What message? They're not afraid of us. Kale swallowed hard. The humans started to vanish again, one by one, slipping back into the forest like ghosts. Before the last one disappeared, he turned toward the ship hand, raised a sign. A simple slab of metal, scratched with alien letters. It read, "We remember everything." Kale stepped away from the screen. That's our language. How do they know our writing? Vec didn't answer. He stared at the message, thinking. He finally said, "We're leaving." But we haven't completed the scan. We're leaving now. The engines roared to life. A rose higher into the atmosphere. Safe again. For now, Kale slumped in his seat. That wasn't first contact. That was a warning. Vec looked out at the shrinking planet. No, that was a trap. We almost walked right into it. Later that night, the Dominion received the final message from the scout team. Audio only. Broken, but clear enough. Kale's voice, whispering, shaking. They're not primitive. They're not weak. They study us. They learn. And when they strike, it's already too late. Then static. Then silence. A new tag appeared on the Dominion's galactic map beside Earth. Status. Hostile contact. Species. Bipeds. Proceed with extreme caution. And somewhere deep in space, other species began to take notice. Because for the first time, the humans had been seen, and they had sent a message. We don't fear you. We study you, and then we make you disappear. Kale's breathing was fast and shallow. He sat alone in the small medical bay, hands trembling. The silence inside the ship felt heavier than gravity. Commander Vec had ordered him to rest, but sleep wasn't possible. Every time Kale closed his eyes, he saw it again, that human, standing in the trees, holding the broken drone like a trophy. Vec, meanwhile, was on a private channel, transmitting their report to Central Command. His voice was low, calm, but anyone could see it in his eyes. Something had shaken him. The Solari Dominion was proud. They had conquered over a dozen species. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of most civilizations, and yet something about those humans had scared him, not just the strength. The silence. The message. The precision, now back on the Solari homeworld, at the Department of Threat Analysis. Two analysts sat in a dark room, watching the footage. The first clip showed the inside of the forest. Trees swaying, drone flying above, then static. The next clip showed the human with the mask, eyes locked on the camera, expressionless. He knew where to look, said Tolan, the elder analyst. His 4 fingers tapped against the desk. This isn't tribal behavior? The younger analyst, Vera, leaned forward. They don't have a centralized command. No government transmissions, but they've organized. That message wasn't random. Tolan nodded. You saw the sign? Yes. We remember everything, and written in Solari script. Which means they've studied us. There was silence between them. Tolan opened a folder. Psych profile estimates from Dominion archives say humans are emotional, chaotic, and divided. Vera shook her head. That might have been true once, not anymore.
Yes.
Something happened to them down there. They've changed. She tapped a screen. Look at this footage from a human settlement we observed 5 years ago. People arguing, loud, disorganized. Compare that to the ones in the forest now. Painted faces, no sound, no wasted movement. They evolved, Talon said. No, Vera replied. They adapted. That word hung in the air. Back on the scout ship, Vex sat in the command seat.
Oh.
The stars drifted outside the window, peaceful and silent. Kale entered, looking tired but calmer. I've been watching the recordings, he said. Vec nodded, not looking away from the stars. And There was something strange about the way they moved, the humans. They didn't talk, not even to each other. It was like they didn't need to. Vec finally turned. Yes, I saw it too. Total coordination. No coms, no visible signals. Like a pack. Kale sat down. You think they've developed psychic links? No, I think they've trained. For years, maybe generations. Kale swallowed. But for what? Vec stared at the stars. To fight back. Meanwhile, deep underground on Earth, the mast, human returned to a bunker lit with low red lights.
Ow.
Dozens of others waited. Men, women, even children, faces painted. Armor patched together from scraps of old tech and metal. The leader removed his mask. A scar ran across his jaw. He nodded to the others. They took the bait, he said. A woman stepped forward. Did they scan the area? Yes, we let them. They think this is a ghost town. They'll report back. Soon they'll send a bigger ship, maybe a science vessel. What do we do? Someone asked. We let them come, the leader said. We make them think they're still in control. He pointed to a map of the region. Red dots marked recent crash sites, downed drones and patrols. But every time they land, we learn more. Take their tech. We study it. Another man spoke. What if they send soldiers this time? The leader smiled coldly. Good. Soldiers are easier to break than scouts. Back on the Solari homeworld, the analysts finished preparing their report. The file was marked High Priority Threat, Unknown, Human Subgroup. It included a chilling quote from Vec's transmission. They don't fight like us. Fight like they've already lost everything. The report ended with this warning. If you see one, you are not alone. If you see 10, you are already surrounded. Several days later, another Solari vessel, a science ship, with over 100 crew entered Earth's orbit. They had read the scout report but dismissed the fear as exaggeration. Scientists didn't scare easily. Dr. Relin, the head xenobiologist, was eager to meet the locals. Primitive cultures always teach us something, be even something beautiful. Her assistant laughed. I don't think the last team saw anything beautiful. Dr. Relin smiled. That's the problem with soldiers. They expect threats, so that's all they find. They landed near an abandoned research station. The buildings looked untouched for years. Dust, cracked windows, wild plants. They set up scanners and prepared for a low-risk, peaceful exploration. An hour passed. Then 2, nothing. Then they heard footsteps. Dozens of them. Quiet. Rhythmic. Dr. Relin stepped outside. They stood in a wide circle around the camp. Humans, dozens. Painted faces, old weapons, sharp eyes. They said nothing, just watched. Doctor. Relin stepped forward with her translator. We come in peace, she said. We wish to learn. The humans didn't move. One stepped forward. It was the same man from the forest. The mask was gone, but the scar was clear. He looked at her then. He pointed at the sky. You watched while we burned, he said. You learned nothing. Before Dr. Relin could answer, the humans vanished into the trees like shadows. When she turned, half her equipment was gone. Taken, no one had seen them move. That night, Dr. Relin recorded her log entry in a shaking voice. They don't want peace. They don't want war either. They want to be left alone. But if we don't leave them, I fear we won't return. The Dominion marked Earth with a new classification. Red level encounter zone. Observation only. No entry, without clearance. But it was too late. The name Bipeds had already spread through the outer colonies. Whispers in cantinas. Fear in. Border patrols. Who are the Bipeds? What do they want? Why do they smile before they strike? In the darkness of space, a new message began to echo among alien networks. Not from humans. From those who survived. They're not the most advanced. But they're the most dangerous, because they never give up. They never forget. The Solari Dominion didn't like fear. Fear made things unstable. Fear made soldiers question orders. That's why the High Council banned open discussion about the bipeds. But people talked anyway, quietly. Off record, the phrase first contact gone wrong had already become a warning. Now, in the far reaches of the galaxy, captains whispered about humans with strange tactics and terrifying silence. And every time they vanished, they left behind messages short, sharp, and unforgettable. But the Council needed proof. The science team that returned from Earth had no hard data, only fear, so they sent General Tavrek. Tavrek was a legend tall, armored, fearless. He had conquered planets, crushed resistance, and silenced rebellions. To him, Earth was just a stain to be wiped clean. "I will end this myth," he told the Council. And with that, his warship dropped out of hyperspace above Earth. Unlike the scouts or scientists, Tavrek came armed. Full assault craft, drones, and 100 elite soldiers. He chose a landing zone in the northern forest, close to where the last contact was lost. The ship descended slowly, scanning for movement. Nothing. Trees, rocks, abandoned vehicles. Tavrek stepped out, armor gleaming, his boots crushing the dry earth. Fan out. At sweep for heat signatures. If they show themselves, subdue. If they resist, eliminate. His soldiers obeyed. They moved in tight groups, efficient, armed, ready, but something felt wrong, too, quiet to still. Sergeant Vorn noticed it first. No birds, no animals, no sound. His partner nodded. "We're being watched." Tavrek heard the chatter. "Stay focused. They're primitives. We control the field." But 1 hour later, the first unit went dark. No gunfire, no screams, just silence. Tavrek pulled up the feed static. Rewind, pause, then. Just for a second, a flash of movement in the trees. Humanoid, fast, gone. Another unit disappeared. Tavrek called for all squads to regroup at the ship. They started moving back quickly. Then came the sounds, not gunfire. One soldier asked, "Where is it coming from?" Tavrek's voice cut through. "Hold formation." But then the lights started going out. Drones dropped from the sky. Equipment failed. One by one, systems shut down. EMP. I know something else. Targeted Tavrek. Looked up hand. Saw symbols carved into the trees. Alien script, but not theirs. His own language we watched. We learned, now it's our turn. Then came the first body, dragged out of the woods and dropped at the edge of camp. A Solari soldier. Unmarked except for the message burned into his armor. "You trained us." Panic started to spread. Tavrek clenched his fists. "They want to scare us. They think fear is a weapon. Let's remind them who invented war." He ordered a sweep through the trees. 10 units moved forward. Only 2 came back. One was dragging something. A human captured, young, female, dirty, but calm. She didn't resist. She didn't speak. Tavrek studied her. Name silence. He repeated louder. Name. She looked up, eyes sharp. "We don't use names anymore," he growled. "You're going to tell us where your people are hiding." The girl leaned forward slightly. "You already found us," she said. Then she bit down on something in her mouth. An explosion rocked the clearing. Smoke. Fire. Screams. The ship was on fire. They hadn't checked her. They'd underestimated her. Again, Tavrek survived barely. He stood in the smoke, looking at the ruins of his camp. His armor cracked, soldiers dying. He saw movement through the haze figures, dozens. The bipeds. They walked toward the flames, calm, slow, unafraid. No armor. No advanced weapons. Just focus. One of them, a tall man with painted, stepped forward. Tavrek raised his blaster. But the human spoke first. "You're good at war," he said. "So were we." Tavrek fired. The human dodged. A blur, too fast. He was on Tavrek in seconds. Hand-to-hand. No gadgets. No tricks. Just pain. When Tavrek woke up, he was alone, naked, unarmed. Sitting in the ruins of his own ship, his last working screen flickered. A single line appeared on it. "Do not return." In Dominion space, the Council listened to Tavrek's final report. He didn't shout, didn't argue. He just spoke one line. "They don't fight like we do. They fight like they've already lost everything." He requested retirement. The Council denied it. They needed answers. They needed to understand why. Species with no fleet, no satellites, no formal army could crush a trained force. One of the counselors asked the AI to review all known human records. The AI responded after several minutes. "They have fought more wars on their own soil than any known species. Over 10,000 conflicts in recorded history." Another counselor leaned back in his seat. "And how many did they lose?" The AI paused. "Few. But even in defeat, they continued fighting." The room fell silent. Because suddenly, it made sense. Humans didn't win by technology. They won by refusing to give up. The bipeds were not born for peace. They were born from fire, and the galaxy had just lit the match. The Solari warship fraction hovered in low orbit above Earth. It was bigger, stronger, and smarter than any ship the humans had seen before. Its purpose was simple: monitor, collect, and prepare for full planetary control. Commander Dresk, a calm and ruthless strategist, had studied the reports. He didn't believe in myths. He believed in patterns. The pattern was clear: every team sent to Earth had failed. But Dresk had something they didn't. He had patience. He didn't land. He didn't send troops. He watched. For 6 days, he monitored radio waves, drone movement, and heat signatures. He collected data on the bipeds: where they moved, when they attacked, what they avoided. The humans, he noticed, weren't reckless. They weren't wild. They were precise, too precise. He saw something else too. Someone had gotten inside. Inside the Solari network. Files missing. Camera feeds rewired. Door logs altered. Dresk narrowed his eyes. "How could they hack our systems?" he asked his AI. The AI responded. "They didn't hack. They physically accessed internal nodes." Dresk froze. "You mean someone is inside the ship?" "Yes." Alarms sounded. Security teams searched every deck, every corridor, every vent. Nothing. Dresk ordered a full lockdown. No airlocks open, no transmissions in or out. Full scan, floor by floor. But the power flickered. Then it failed. Backup lights came on red, dim, silent. Dresk grabbed his sidearm. He wasn't panicked, but his grip tightened. A whisper came over the ship's intercom. Not Solari. Human. A deep voice. "Ah! You locked the doors too late." Dresk turned to his guard. "Trace that voice." "Already trying, Commander. But it's bouncing between systems." A monitor switched on by itself. A camera feed. 12 storage bay. A single human stood in the center. No armor, no weapon, just stillness. He was looking up directly at the camera, smiling. Dresk growled. "How did he get there?" Unknown. No breach records. No open hatches. And he was already here. The video cut to static. Moments later, Deck 12 went dark. Then Deck 11. Then Deck 10. The lights dropped level by level, like a descending storm. Security teams were silent. No gunfire, no screams. Just nothing. Dresk opened a channel to all remaining crew. Move in pairs. If you see the intruder, do not engage alone. He is not ordinary. The AI interrupted. "Commander?" We are locked out of life support. We are no longer in control of the ship. Dresk's blood ran cold. Where is the human now? A pause. Then, Deck 3. Engineering. Dresk was on Deck 4. He made a choice. He descended the ladder alone, blaster ready, heart pounding in his chest. Out. He entered engineering, empty, dark. A slow drip echoed off the walls. Something had been drawn on the metal floor circles, marks and one word in Solari language. Round 1. Behind him a whisper. You should have listened. Dresk turned and fired, too slow. The human was already gone, just a shadow slipping through the maintenance shaft. Security teams finally arrived, but the damage was done. Systems were locked. The engines were offline. Communications disabled. Vraction was dead in the sky, floating alone. Hours later, emergency power came back. Dresk sat in the command chair, head in his hands. A final message had been left on every terminal across the ship. This is not your world. It never was. Leave or be taken apart. The Solari Dominion received Dresk's emergency report. Days later, he had managed to escape on a short-range pod. It told them everything. But the most terrifying part wasn't the sabotage. It wasn't the system's failure. It was this. One human. Just one. He shut down an entire warship. With no help. No weapons. No fear. Back on Earth, in a bunker deep beneath a burned-out city, the intruder returned. His team welcomed him. In silence, he handed over the data cube full of Dominion ship schematics, troop deployments, and future invasion plans. The leader nodded. You weren't seen? The man smiled. I was seen. They looked at each other and laughed, because being seen was part of the message. They wanted the Solari to know. They wanted them to feel it. The bipeds were all ready. Inside, back in space on a distant Solari listening post, a young officer asked his commander a question. Why do they call them bipeds? Isn't that just what they are? The commander replied, eyes full of something deeper than fear. No, it's not about how they walk. It's how they stand. He paused. They stand when they should fall. They move when logic says stop. They adapt when others collapse. He leaned in. Worst of all, they're already thinking 3 moves ahead. The officer swallowed. What do we do? The commander turned away. Stop calling them bipeds. That name makes them sound simple. He stared at the stars. They're not simple. They're survivors. And they've just declared war. Because the humans had figured it out, you don't need an army to win a war. You just need one soldier, one idea, one opening, and the will to never stop, no matter how long it takes. High above Earth, the Solari Dominion War Council gathered in a holographic chamber. Around the table stood generals, scientists, strategists. None smiled. None argued. Every mission to Earth had ended the same way disaster. Scout teams vanished. Science teams returned in fear. A full warship was shut down from the inside by one human. The council no longer doubted the threat. Now they wanted control. We will strike with full force, General Varask growled. No more observation, no more hesitation. We bring fire. No one disagreed, but one voice spoke soft, cold. Admiral Ulek. If we strike without understanding, she said, we lose more than soldiers. We lose the game. Game. Varask barked. This is war. Ulek nodded once. Exactly. The bipeds don't fight fair. 3 days later, the Solari deployed a new plan. Operation Netlock. A series of stealth drones would surround a hidden human outpost found deep in a desert canyon. Then, when the signal was given, teams would drop in from above. Quick, clean. No time to run. The drones moved into position silent, high above the rock cliffs. Sensors picked up 30 humans below, moving slowly, setting up campfires, cooking primitive behavior. Easy targets. The drop teams waited. General Varask watched from orbit, ready to signal the attack. He smiled. Let's see them fight now, he gave the order. The pods launched 50 elite soldiers, weapons drawn, eyes sharp. They landed hard and fast, surrounding the canyon. The humans looked up, surprised. Exactly as planned. Move in, Varesk shouted into the cums. No survivors. The soldiers moved down. But something was wrong. Too easy. The humans didn't resist. They didn't even run. Just stood still, then smiled. One of them, man. Older woman raised her hand and pressed a button. It's when the sky lit up. Boom. All around the canyon rim, the cliffs exploded. Rocks tumbled, fire burst, drones dropped from the sky, one by one. It wasn't a camp, it was a trap. From the cliffs above, more humans appeared, masked, painted, and moving fast. They had waited, watched, planned. The Solari soldiers tried to regroup, but the ground below them gave weight trapdoors made of sand and fake stone. Within minutes, 10 soldiers were captured. 15 more were out of contact, the others scattered. The humans chased them not with advanced weapons, but with speed, strategy, and something worse, knowledge. They knew the terrain. They knew the enemy's weapons, even knew how to jam the Solari's cums. By nightfall, only 8 soldiers made it back to extraction. The rest were gone. Varesk stared at the screen in disbelief. It was a setup from the start, Ulek said behind him. Varesk clenched his fists. They're savages. No, Ulek replied. They're students. They studied us. Now they're teaching us a lesson. Back at the canyon, inside a hidden cave, the humans questioned a captured Solari officer. He sat chained, confused, and silent. You used net drones to trap us, the human leader said, but we saw them 2 days ago. How? The officer demanded. They were cloaked. The human smiled. Your tech hums at a frequency. You don't even hear anymore. But we do. You think you're gods with machines, but your tools are loud, obvious, predictable. The Solari officer shook his head. We're more advanced. The human leaned in. That's your mistake. In orbit, General Varusk's pride was broken. He called for reinforcements. Ulek watched silently, her mind working fast. She didn't need more numbers. She needed understanding. Later that night, she read an intercepted message left behind by the humans at another abandoned base. It was scratched into metal. You send machines, we send ghosts. She read it again and again. Then she understood. That bipeds weren't trying to win by force. They were winning by making every Solari second-guess their own strength. Every drone could be watched. Every soldier could be followed. Every mission could be a trap. The humans had flipped the rules. In the shadows of a ruined Earth city, the human resistance gathered around a fire. One of the young scouts returned. They sent more today. 50. Better gear. Still sloppy. Another nodded. They don't know we've read their tactics. A woman passed around a stolen Solari. Helmet, we're not stronger, but we're smarter. The leader stood. They see our weapons and laugh. But they forget we used to fight each other for thousands of years. We fought with sticks, fire, steel, code, satellites. Now we fight with memory. He looked around. No matter how many they send, ... He pointed to his temple. There. Always one step behind. That night, another message was left for the Solari. We don't fight fair. We fight to win. And above Earth, in orbit, a quiet panic began to spread. Because it wasn't about how advanced the bipeds were. It was about how well they understood the weakness of those who thought they were untouchable. The prison cell aboard the Solari warship was quiet. Cold metal walls, bright white lights, no sound but breathing. Inside sat Saren, a young Solari technician. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't carry a weapon. He just fixed systems doors. Drones, data lines. He had never seen combat. But now, for the first time, he was guarding a prisoner, a human. She was small, thin, covered in dust. Her arms were tied. Her face was blank, but her eyes were watching everything. Every light, every vent, every sensor. She didn't speak, didn't struggle, just sat as if waiting. Saren had never been this close to a biped before. He didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Hours passed. The ship hummed with tension. No alarms, but everyone felt that something was off. This human hadn't been captured in battle. She had surrendered, on purpose. They found her standing alone near one of their landing beacons, unarmed. Still, she let them cuff her. She let them bring her here. And that was what scared them most. What kind of enemy walks into the lion's mouth? Saren stood outside the cell, watching her through the glass. He finally spoke. "Why are you here?" The human looked at him, not hostile, not scared, just curious. "You've seen what we can do," she said quietly. "Why haven't you?" Asked why we're doing it? Saren blinked. "Ash, you're fighting back. To win?" She shook her head. "No, that's not it." He frowned. "Then why?" The human leaned forward. "To show you who we are." She told him stories. It's not about battles, about Earth, before the fall, the cities, the people, the wars, the mistakes, the hope. Saren listened. He wasn't supposed to talk to prisoners, especially not humans. But he couldn't stop himself, because something in her voice didn't sound like a conqueror. It sounded like someone defending home. She talked about the firestorms, the chemical skies, the floods, the betrayals, and how humanity didn't break. They adapted, Sran asked. "Why didn't you just flee? Hide in the mountains? Underground?" The human smiled softly. "Because we've learned. If you hide long enough, someone always comes looking. So we decided not to hide anymore." She leaned back. "Let them come. We're ready now." Later that night, Saren watched old Solari footage from the first Earth landing. He saw the laughing commanders, the open field, the walking patrols. Then he saw the attacks, the silence, the traps, the fear in their voices as they realized it wasn't a scouting mission, it was a hunt. And suddenly, he didn't feel proud. He felt ashamed because they hadn't come to help. They came to claim. Next day, the human prisoner was gone. No alarms. No signs of escape. Just a note etched into the wall of her cell. "We don't want your empire. We want you to understand." Word spread through the fleet. Again, another prisoner vanished. No breach, no trace. It was like she had walked through the walls. Some said it was a trick. Others whispered something worse. What if she was let out by someone on the inside? Saren sat alone in the dark, couldn't sleep. The words echoed in his mind. "We don't want your empire. We want you to understand." He asked himself a question he had never dared ask before. What if they're right? What if the humans weren't monsters? What if they were? Mirrors? Elsewhere, far below, deep under ruined streets and ash-covered cities, the human, who had once been a prisoner, walked into a fire-lit bunker. She nodded at her team. "They listened," she said. "Not all of them, but one did." Another human, a tall man with sharp eyes, smiled. "That's all we need." Above Earth, in a Solari Fleet command ship, Admiral Ulek stared at her screen. It showed something new. A small ship, human-made, unarmed, broadcasting a simple message on open channels. Ulek played the recording. A humanvoice.com direct. "You came to conquer. We came to survive. But there's something you still don't see." Pause. "We remember, and we forgive, but we never forget." Then the transmission ended. Silence returned, but Ulek didn't speak. She sat still, because in that moment, she felt something she hadn't expected. Not fear, not even defeat, but respect. She turned to her second officer. "They could have destroyed that scout fleet last week. We traced them hacking the launch codes." "Yes," the officer replied. "But they didn't." Ulek nodded. "They're not just sending us warnings, they're sending us choices." She looked back at the stars. "They're giving us a way out." In the days that followed, something strange happened. One Solari captain refused an order to attack a human outpost. Another quietly opened a channel to the resistance. And somewhere, in secret, a meeting was arranged. Human and Solari. Face to face, no weapons, no cameras, just questions. And slowly a new word began to spread, not through fear, but through Whispers of change, understanding. Because now, even the most loyal Solari soldiers were asking themselves the same thing. Were we the monsters all along? And worse? What if the bipeds were never fighting to destroy us? But to save what was left of us? High above Earth, the Solari flagship Dominion's Wrath hovered in low orbit. It was the most powerful warship ever built, 20 decks, armored hull, AI-controlled weapons, and nearly 2,000 crew on board. It had never lost a battle now. It had one goal: end the biped threat. No more scouts, no more stealth, no more games. Admiral Kyrak stood in the command chamber, surrounded by officers. "We strike hard," he said. "We strike now. We show them what happens when primitives challenge the Dominion." His officers nodded, some with pride, some with fear. Deep down, they had all seen the reports. The disappearances, the sabotage, the traps. But Kyrax didn't believe in ghost stories. They're smart, he admitted, but they don't have this. He gestured to the massive holomapa display of full-scale orbital firepower aimed at Earth's northern hemisphere. His plan: wipe out the region believed to be the center of human resistance fast, final, total, ready. The weapon, the AI confirmed. Orbital plasma cannon charging. Target locked. They had 90 seconds. Down below, in a deep underground facility. The Resistance Command Center buzzed with quiet tension. The warning had come minutes earlier. Child had picked it up first on a stolen radio. Then a runner brought it in. Now, everyone knew the flagship was preparing to fire. No evacuation, no defense, just resolve. But the humans weren't. Panicking, they were moving fast, not to fight, to finish something at the heart of the bunker. 3 engineers stood around a console. "Is it ready?" the commander asked. The lead engineer nodded. "We've tested the signal. If it works." "It'll only work once," the commander finished. He turned to a tall man standing quietly at the edge of the room. "You know the plan?" The man nodded. "I go up there, alone, and press send." Back on the Dominion's Wrath, the countdown reached 60 seconds, then for 5, then 30. Admiral Kyrox grinned. "This is how we end legends." But just as the AI announced 20 seconds to fire, every screen on the bridge flickered, static, then black, then a single message: "You shouldn't have come." The lights dimmed, the systems froze, the AI went silent, then the emergency alarms. "Howled, Commander," one officer shouted. "The ship's core is locked. Weapons offline. By who?" Kyrox demanded. A new voice came over the intercom. "Human.com. Steady. Double quotes. I warned you," it said. "We don't need an army." Suddenly, dozens of terminals flashed. Cameras activated, internal ones. They showed footage from inside the ship. Humans, already, aboard unseen, unarmed, but everywhere. One in the reactor room, one in the life support. Deca, another in the weapons bay. Kyrex stared in horror. "How did they get inside?" a second-in-comm man whispered. "They've been here for days." A final screen lit up. A close-up of a human face. Painted silent. Smiling. Then everything went dark. The plasma cannon didn't fire. The engine stopped. Doors locked. Power gone. The ship began to drift. "Commander," Kyrox shouted. "Orders none of them worked." One final message appeared on every system. Round 2. 30 hours later, the flagship was recovered empty. Every Solari crew member had been left alive. No one was harmed. No systems damaged beyond repair, but everything had been disabled with precision, and the ship's entire database, military codes, fleet positions, strategic AI protocols was gone, stolen by ghosts back on Earth. The human resistance gathered in silence. The man who had gone aboard the ship turned through the trees on foot. He carried nothing but a smile. The commander met him at the edge. "Of the firelight? It worked." The man nodded. They panicked. In Dominion space, the High Council called an emergency meeting. They had lost their strongest ship. Their codes were compromised. Their enemies were learning faster than any species in history, one counselor asked quietly. What do they want? One answered, but a transmission came in from Earth, sent from an old relay satellite. It wasn't a threat. It was a lesson, a human voice. Tired and calm, you didn't lose because we're stronger. You lost because you never tried to understand us. You came here thinking we were prey. A pause. Now you see the truth. We were never yours to conquer. That same night, across the galaxy, alien species who had once feared the Solari Dominion watched the message play. On black market screens, whispers grew into voices. Voices grew into movement, and the Solari began to feel something. New, they were no longer feared, because the bipeds had done the impossible, not just by fighting back, not just by surviving, but by proving that power means nothing. ... When your enemy understands you better than you understand yourself. The stars above Earth were quiet now, no more Solari fleets, no more orbital threats, just empty black, watching, waiting, far below. In the ash-gray forests where the last battles had burned, the humans gathered in silence. They didn't cheer, they didn't dance. There was no victory parade. They had survived. That was enough. Commander Ellis stood atop a broken Solari drop pod, staring at the horizon. Wind moved through the trees like whispers. His second-in-command approached. It's over. Ellis didn't. He didn't believe in endings. He looked down at the data core recovered from the Dominion flagship, still warm, still blinking. In it, maps, codes, locations, the secrets of an empire, and something more. Something the Solari never expected anyone to find. Evidence, experiments, colonies, other worlds, other victims. Humanity wasn't the first, but they could be the last. In the underground vault below the bunker, the resistance leaders met for one final session. We have what we came for, said a woman with a steel cybernetic arm. We crippled their network, took their most powerful weapon. A younger man leaned forward. We should strike their homeworld now. End it. No, Ellis said. They need to feel what we felt. They already do, Ellis replied. Fear, confusion, doubt. We could burn their cities, sure. But what would that make us? No one answered. He stood and placed a small device on the table. A beacon, simple, old, human dash made. Broadcasting one phrase on a loop. We are still here. Not a threat, not a promise, just truth. Half a galaxy away. Deep inside the Solari High Council's fortress, the leaders sat in silence. Not because they had nothing to say, because they finally realized they didn't know who they were speaking for anymore. Their ships had turned empty. Their soldiers asked questions. Their citizens watched the stars not with pride, but dread. And then a final message arrived. From Earth it played once. No encryption, no fear, just a human. Standing in the middle of a ruined city, speaking directly to the stars. We were never your enemy. We only defended what was ours. But if you return, he looked into the camera. We won't defend it next time. We'll come to yours. The screen went black, and the Dominion fell silent. Years passed. Earth began to heal, not completely. Not cleanly, but steadily. Children walked through the ruins of glass cities, asking questions their parents never answered. New trees grew where ash once choked the ground. The skies were still, cracked with satellite debris. But they no longer glowed with enemy fire. The bipeds had done the possible. They had survived first contact. They had defeated an empire without becoming one. And they had reminded the galaxy of something long forgotten. You don't need to conquer. To be powerful, you just need to endure. In the Resistance Memorial Hall, a single quote glowed on the wall. Etched in metal from the wreckage of a Solari war engine, they came to study our weaknesses. But they left afraid of our strength. And below it, a plaque. The Bipeds we were never meant to rule. We were only meant to remember, far beyond Earth, on a distant neutral station. An alien traveler sat at a bar, listening to hushed voices speak. Of humanity, of ghosts, of code that could blind a ship in seconds, of soldiers who disappeared without a trace, of messages that haunted systems for months. The bartender leaned in. "You ever seen a biped?" The traveler shook his head. The bartender smirked. "You wouldn't know if you did." In the shadows of space, the legend of Earth grew, not because it wanted attention, but because it had earned respect. The bipeds didn't ask for war. They answered it, and when they were done, they left a final message echoing across the stars. "If you come for us, come ready.
Bye.
Because we won't just survive next time. We'll teach you why you should have left us alone."